And with that, we left the preparation room. I couldn't give the sleeping pills back now, so I could only hope that the help I would need to provide would be something easy. After school, having somehow gotten through today's classes, I exited the school building. Saki hadn't texted me or anything, so I was just about to head home when I saw a familiar car parked in front of the school gate. It was a black luxury sedan with tinted windows. Anyone could see it was that kind of car. It was likely bulletproof, although I hadn't heard for sure. I couldn't say what make or model of car it was. This familiar car was one of Hasuno Security Services', I think, private vehicles. In other words, one of Saki's family's cars.
あら、兄さん。ちょうど今帰るところだったのね。
Yeah. So, you're getting a ride home today? There weren't many times when one of those cars was here for a different reason. The security guards at our school were from Hasuno Security Services, so I sometimes saw these cars because of that. But that was all.
ええ。ついでだし、兄さんも乗っていく？
I'll pass. There were quite a few rich kids who attended Suikyo Academy, so there were times when someone came to pick one of them up in front of the school gate. But the Hasuno car had a different aura than your usual luxury car. It attracted the attention of students going home.
まさか、うちの車で帰るのが恥ずかしいとか、そんな情けないことは言わないわよね。
No, I'm just afraid of seeing Takahara again. It was an honest confession. Picking up Saki and dropping her off was Takahara's job. With Saki coming to my room in the morning recently, I didn't know what Takahara would say. Even if she didn't say anything, it was nerve-wracking just being with her.
そんなに怖い人じゃないっていつも言ってるじゃない。情けない。
Call me whatever you want. To me, Takahara was a visceral, or rather natural-born enemy. I had an instinctive aversion to her. She was beautiful, and I thought of her as a good person, but I found Saki's father easy to talk to, although he was pretty scary too. Saki gave me a condescending glance.
まあ、今日のところはいいわ。それじゃあ兄さん、またね。無理しないでいい子にしてるのよ。
I don't want to exert myself either. Despite answering like this, I was taken aback. Normally, when my physical condition was bad, she'd pretty much forcefully shove me into the car. Maybe my complexion, which everyone had said was awful since this morning, had gotten considerably better just from eating lunch. No. Before I left the classroom, Tetsuya and Asahi were still telling me hurry and go home and sleep, so that couldn't be it. But Saki had already gone ahead. Upon seeing Saki, a pretty young woman with a sharp expression came out from the driver's side. It was Takahara. Maybe she noticed me. She seemed to be talking to Saki about something, but Saki just got into the back seat. I kind of have a bad feeling about this. Saki had said, "See you later." Did that mean she was going to barge into my apartment again tomorrow morning? I really didn't want Saki to see my face when I was having nightmares. My mood got a bit heavy as I watched the black car drive away. That night, I ate the onigiri I'd stored in the fridge and finished my homework. Although that was all I had done, I decided to take a shower. For me, it was a relatively normal night until...
あら、兄さん。お邪魔してるわ。
There you go. I was about to say you're not going to have to wait until morning, but I refrained from saying it. Unfortunately, to my, not dismay, detriment. There you go. Upon finishing my shower, when I opened the door and grabbed a towel, I saw Saki sitting on the sofa in front of the TV waiting for me. Huh? At first, I thought I made some sort of mistake. She was sitting there so naturally that I couldn't say a thing. I wasn't wearing my glasses, so for a moment I thought I was dreaming. Well, this would be a good dream, wouldn't it? Unfortunately, I don't think that's the case. As for Saki, she was drinking a bottle of tea that she must have bought on the way here as she watched TV. It was a crime drama series. Saki had said something about liking the actor, but that wasn't important. That wasn't important.
ところで兄さん、とりあえず隠すなら隠したら？その気がないならそれでいいけど。
She said this without looking at me, so I was noticeably startled. Wait, what? I was going to, but that's not the point. That's not the point. I grabbed my towel and retreated into the bathroom.
なに？それとも見てほしいの？
Of course not. Just face the other way. I hurriedly wiped myself off, then went around behind Saki and changed into that at-home clothes I had prepared. My hair and body were still wet, but this wasn't the time to worry about that. And Saki hadn't looked this way while I was changing, so that was good. Next to the sofa, there was a big bag that I didn't see very often. Aha! It was one of those smaller traveling bags. I thought of what it could be for, but all I felt was a sense of foreboding. She's... okay. My first thought was that she was moving in, but the bag definitely isn't big enough for there to be that many pairs of clothing, so she's just sleeping over, right? Hey Saki, what are you doing here at this hour? I guessed what I prayed that I was wrong. I had a guess, but I prayed that I was wrong. By the way, it was past 8. It wasn't exactly late in the night, but it was pretty late for her to have come just to hang out.
あら、だいたいわかってるんじゃないの？
I'm hoping that I'm wrong. When I said that, Saki turned around and put her elbow on the back of the sofa.
今晩泊まっていくから。
Go home. I said it immediately, so she squinted in obvious indignation.
たまには妹が兄さんのところに泊まっていってもいいじゃない。
That's not wrong with an adolescent... what's not wrong with an adolescent girl spending the night at a man's apartment? Well, you're not a man, first of all. There's no second of all, but... as far as any actual danger, I honestly didn't think... I honestly didn't have that much confidence anymore. Did Saki think she would be safe with me?
あら、もしかして私、兄さんに襲われちゃう？
She giggled teasingly and smiled with perfect ease. I didn't have 100% confidence I wouldn't attack Saki or do something I'd regret, but there was an even greater danger before that, and that's what I'm afraid of. I was afraid of. It's not a matter of me making a move on you or not. I'm going to die. Takahara will never allow this. The big sister figure who loved Saki always smiled in obvious discontent when Saki and I got along together. Saki had stayed overnight before, and each time it was followed by days of me staying low, so I waited for Takahara's aggro meter to go down.
大丈夫じゃないかしら。ここまで送ってくれたのも高原さんだけど、いつも通りだったわよ。
That made sense. There was no way she would make Saki walk here alone with her luggage at this hour. Of course, she would drop her off and pick her up. How did this even happen?
大丈夫よ。兄さんが心配だから泊まってくるって父さんに言ってから来たんだもの。うちのみんなも心配してたわよ。
Hell has clearly frozen over. Why didn't your dad just let me be?
高原さんも私の代わりに兄さんの様子を見に行こうかってその時は言ってくれたし、みんなに心配されてるのに何が不満なのよ。
I'd imagine that wasn't because Takahara was worried about me, but rather she didn't want Saki to come here. Then again, since the Hasuno's president had allowed it, there was no way Takahara could easily object. Did Takahara say anything else?
兄の一線を越えたらってぼやいてたかしら。
Now that was incredibly frightening. It was even scarier that she didn't say what would happen. Hey Saki, you could still go home, you know. I'm perfectly fine. I suggested this with a huge grin on my face. Well, Maybe I should have also put a huge grin on my face.
そうね。兄さんがどうしてもって言うなら帰ってもいいけど。
Really? I insist, I insist.
ただその場合は、兄さんに襲われそうになったから逃げてきたって言うわ。
Saki gave an even bigger grin, and it even looked like it was glowing. I dropped to my knees and hung my head. I felt like a shadow was looming over me. If Saki made a report like that, there was no telling what would happen to me. With my hands and knees on the floor, Saki looked down at me and giggled. Her eyes weren't smiling in the slightest.
私が泊まりに来るのがそんなに嫌だとは思わなかったわ。兄さん。
You need to understand it from my perspective.
苦労なんてないでしょ?
Yes, there are. A girl I get along with had come to my apartment to spend the night. There was no way I wouldn't be happy about that. In that sense, I didn't hate it, but my death was inside if I made a single mistake during that time. My nerves weren't strong enough to happily welcome that. Why did you suddenly come to stay over again? Usually she'd just occasionally come on weekends. She'd never suddenly come over on a weekday. I got up and put my hands on the back of the couch. Saki, still sitting, looked up at me.
言っておくけど、面白半分とか気分じゃないわよ。
Thank God for that. When I looked at Saki sitting on the sofa and looking up at me, my heart skipped a beat. Saki looked disturbingly feminine, relaxing in her casual clothes. On top of that, she must have come after taking a bath because she smelled good. Not seeming to realize my inner thoughts, Saki continued in her usual tone.
兄さんが一人で寝ると、またうなされるかと思って心配してきたのよ。
Well, I was worrying Saki again. I mean, she's not wrong. I thought of various things I wanted to say, but I didn't know which were the ones I should say. Thank you, and I'm sorry came to mind, but saying either one would mean admitting my own weakness. So I scratched my head to hide it. Jeez, you went to the trouble of coming here just because of that?
何よそれ。人がせっかく心配してきてあげたのに。
You know my dreams and nightmares are like a chronic illness. I'm sorry to worry you, but they can't be fixed that easily. And what can you even do if you stayed here? We were talking about my dreams. What could I even do when I was the one dreaming them? Maybe she could wake me up when I was having a nightmare, but in that case, Saki wouldn't be able to sleep. Hang on, what? Yeah, what could I even do? I mean, okay, it's not like he's wrong. We were talking about my dreams. What could I even do when I was the one dreaming them? But, you know, with how the conversation was going, I thought this was a what could she even do, right? Especially with what was said after, with the when I was the one dreaming them. Whatever. Saki smiled confidently as though she were making fun of me.
あら、どうして何もできないなんて言うのかしら?
Because I have nightmares when I sleep. What am I supposed to do? Not sleep?
そうね。朝まで寝かさないなんてのも面白そうだけど、それじゃ解決にならないものね。
No, it wouldn't. I won't let you sleep until morning. If anyone was going to say that, I'd imagine it'd be me. Saki had little knowledge of that kind of stuff, and she might not have even been conscious of what she was saying, but she certainly made me conscious of it.
だけど、だからって、あんな夢をまた見てるって言われて、ほっとけるわけがないじゃない。
Still staring into my eyes, Saki gripped her skirt in frustration. You know, there's similar words. You know, when it comes to Freudian slips, at least keep it to words that only have one letter of difference. I'm talking to my brain. I turned away from Saki, and as I was still standing, rested my butt on the back of the couch. I noticed the pills I received from Club Prez sitting on my desk where I'd put them. If I took those and went into a deep sleep, then maybe I wouldn't dream. In fact, I only relied on those when I was tired from having too many strange dreams and just wanted to rest. Ooh. Hey, Saki, you're making a big deal out of this. I've only had nightmares 2 nights in a row. Yeah, only. This is me, remember? I have nightmares a lot. You're worrying too much over nothing but dreams. Worrying too much over nothing but dreams.
へえ、兄さんがたかが夢なんておかしいわ。それ、説得力のかけらもないってわかってる？
Not good. Saki's voice had gotten seriously testy. It was different from her usual faux irritation. No, wait. I'm sorry, it wasn't okay for me to say that to you. But that's not the point. I'm truly sorry to worry you. But even so, what can you do about it?
私にだって、兄さんの気を紛らわすくらいはできるわ。
She pouted, not at all trying to hide her bad mood. Distracting me? How do you plan to do that when I'm sleeping? Well, obviously obviously she's gonna sleep with you. Saki just said that she didn't plan to keep me awake all night. Just then, Saki chuckled proudly.
かわいい妹が抱き枕になってあげるって言ってるのよ。
Okay, well that's going a bit further than just sleeping in the same bed. But, I mean, it would work. Probably. Huh? Body pillow? I didn't quite understand what she was saying.
そうすれば、多少は気が紛れて悪い夢なんて見ないんじゃないかしら。もっとも別の夢は見るかもしれないけど。
Hey, Saki, do you understand what that means? What you're saying?
夢の中なら何をしても許してあげるわよ。
I was actually referring to sleeping together in the same bed. Saki seemed to understand that, and she giggled as she looked at me.
それとも夢の中じゃなくて起きたまま兄さんに何かされちゃうのかしら。私、そうなったらさすがに抵抗するけど。
Saki glanced at me teasingly.
それとも兄さんは抵抗する相手に無理やりするのが好きだったりするのかしら。
I'm not going to do anything whether you would resist or not. Actually, if I made it clear that I just might do something, maybe Saki would have left. But by the time I thought of that, it was too late.
だったら問題ないじゃない。
It was nothing but problems, or rather, not one of the problems that, or rather, not one of the problems had been resolved. What? It was nothing but problems, or rather, not one of the problems had been resolved. Not what? What are you? What? Okay, sure, I'm confused by what he's saying. I must have looked pretty disgusted, because Saki got offended.
兄さんは何が不満なのかしら。ちゃんと来る前にお風呂だって入ってきたわよ。
Do I have to explain it from the beginning? All I wanted was a peaceful existence in which I could live a leisurely life. It was my honest belief that I didn't need moments like these to test my endurance and wear down my mind.
さ、兄さん、寝ましょう。
Thus, my persuasions and explanations all ended in vain. Saki and I were brother and sister. If I did make a move on her, it was just a matter of close siblings sleeping together, and what kind of pervert would do something to his little sister anyway? She refused to budge from this position. Point, but, both work. It makes sense logically, but...
言いたいことがあるならはっきり言ってくれる？
I've already said everything. Saki squinted as she looked at me. While it wasn't too noticeable when she was in her school uniform, over the past few years, Saki had become quite womanly. I was about to say quite the woman, but she's meant to still be. Actually, no, it's the she's 18, guys, right? That's what the warning would say. So I guess you could consider her a woman, especially around her chest, which compared to girls of the same age was quite. Just as I was thinking this, she suddenly put her hands on her clothes. Saki,
なに？今から着替えるんだけど。兄さん、見たい？
so you're telling me to go retreat into the bathroom?
見たいって言えばここにいてもいいわよ。ただ、言った以上はちゃんと見ていないとダメよ。
Don't threaten me with a good time? What do you mean? If you want to watch, you have to watch the whole thing. What do you mean by that? Saki giggled with a faint amused smile. She was completely enjoying herself. But I couldn't go and say I want to see. I'm going to the convenience store, so be done changing by the time I come back.
はーい。仕方ないわね。
Though I had already changed into my at-home clothes, the neighborhood convenience store wasn't that far away. I put on my coat, and with my back to the still smiling Saki, left the apartment. I quietly closed the door behind me. It would be funny if she intentionally, because obviously I doubt when Toru comes back, he's going to knock on the door to see if she's finished changing, right? It would be funny if Saki intentionally waits until the very last second to start changing, so that when Toru comes back, he opens the door on her changing. I mean, the chances of that happening would be like, I guess 50-50, or of her doing that would be 50-50. But yeah. It's not because it's definitely not because I want that to happen or anything. Who taught her how to mess with people like that? The cold winter air outside felt good on my hot face. Those kinds of jokes were bad for my heart and took years off my life. Well, I'm sure they take less years off your life than any of your nightmares. Does she know that? I'm sure she does. Or did. Maybe I just need to get my act together. Or maybe she was getting revenge for the current situation. That seemed more likely. As I thought this, I went down the stairs and headed to the convenience store. Maybe I'll buy breakfast for tomorrow too. After I braved the cold and came back, Saki had finished changing. Oh well, I guess I can't catch her changing. She was dressed lightly for winter, I thought, but I had a heater, so she would probably be fine.
おかえりなさい、兄さん。外寒かったでしょ?
Of course, she's still wearing purple. I don't know what I expected her to. I don't know what I expected. Yeah, I don't know what color I expected her to wear, considering her casual clothes, I guess you could say, were also purple. It was. Put tomorrow's breakfast, the usual onigiri and sandwiches, into the fridge. Saki was apparently going through my bookshelves. She wasn't messing them up, but there was something suspicious about her movements. What are you doing? I doubted she was looking for manga, and the area she was searching had a lot of science magazines I'd like to read. I didn't think she would be interested in those.
何って、兄さんの本棚にいやらしい本がないか探してるんだけど。
Saki, just because you proclaim it proudly doesn't mean you can get away with it.
あら、やっぱり持ってるのね。
Of course I do. Why wouldn't I? I doubt there were many guys my age who didn't have some.
それで、どこにしまってあるの?
Like I'd tell you. Saki still had her back to me, so I placed my cold hands against her neck from behind.
冷たい、やめて!
Saki squirmed away from me. She ran to the other side of the sofa and hid there, wary as a cat.
急に何するのよ。何かするならせめて言ってからにしてよ。
So I could do it if I tell you first.
大抵のことは。 兄さんがしたいって言うなら別にいいわよ。
After making a shrewd or rather convenient acknowledgement, she must have noticed what she was saying. Anyway, don't go searching for something so private. It's bad enough as it is that you come into my apartment without permission.
別にいいじゃない。兄さんが持ってるものなんて大したことないくせに。
Saka refused to approach me as she hurled insults. She wasn't normally clingy or anything, but for her to put such an obvious distance between us hurt. It had gotten rather late. As I was getting out cushions and spare blankets, Saki was sitting on the bed, dangling her legs and watching me with cold eyes.
兄さん、何をしているの？
Making a place for me to sleep. You go ahead and sleep there.
それで兄さんはそっちで寝るの？
Yeah, don't tell me you were planning on sleeping together.
最初からそう言ってるじゃない。
Even if I'm not going to make a move on you, think of our ages. We're at that age where... Saki came to my side with an unhappy look and put a finger to my mouth, silencing me.
お互い何かしら？誰かが見てるわけでも言いふらすわけでもないし。それとも兄さんは私のことがそんなに嫌い？
If I did, I would have sent you back home a long time ago. It wasn't fair for her to ask that, but even when I answered, Saki's expression remained sullen.
だったらいいじゃない。兄さんのベッド広いし、二人で寝るくらいは十分あるでしょ？
It is large, but to be honest, it was too large for one person. When you considered its original purpose, it was natural for it to be this large. And Saki was small, so it wasn't like one of us would be forced out of the bed. By the way, it was Saki's dad who bought it for me when I moved in. Wait, no, maybe this was just an extra bed that he had. I had to buy. I listen. Maybe it is that deep, but I don't think it is. I had wondered where the bed had come from, but I was relatively certain that it wasn't acquired by any unorthodox means. But we can't. I don't want to say it, but I am a guy.
こっちに来ないなら、兄さんが寝た後にそっちに潜り込むわ。
Saki declared as she spoke over me. Her eyes said she was serious.
そうね。ソファーの方が狭いからくっつきやすくていいかしら。
Hey, are you serious? Saki's expression was so unwavering that she seemed to be saying I was wrong to even ask. Apparently, it went without saying. Hey, Saki.
言う通りにしないと、高原さんにあることないこと言うわよ。
Eek! You demon! Devil! To make threats like that? Do you seriously intend to end my life? Damn it. Why didn't she stop you from staying over tonight?
ああ、私と父さんの顔を立てたのもあるけど、高原さんなりに兄さんを信用してるところがあるみたいよ。
Really? Light on the horizon. My integrity had finally gotten to Takahara and...
ええ、手出ししなければギリギリだけど許すって言ってたもの。
I see. Barely, huh? In our current situation, I was probably dancing on a thin red line, very close to being out.
さ、兄さん、一緒に寝ましょ。
Saki pulled my hand, seemingly enjoying herself, as I let myself be dragged toward the bed. And so I went to bed after having my childhood friend tell me, let's sleep together. If it were just this, others might have found this envious, maybe even unforgivable. But standing in my own shoes, I keenly felt that it wasn't necessarily a good thing. The feel of Saki's fingers gripping my hand was soft, and I liked that feeling, but I felt like I was about to be plunged into a hot house for an unknown amount of time. Hold on, Saki. I get it. I won't run away, so let go already. I had to prepare myself to resign myself. In that case, there was something I should do before I went to sleep. I tapped Saki's hand, which was holding on to me.
なーに？もう寝るんじゃなかったの？
Let me use the bathroom. When I said this, Saki gave in and let go of me. I secretly picked something off of my desk as I pretended to hit my hand. Pretended to hit my hand on it and headed into the bathroom. When I finished and came back, for some reason Saki was clutching my pillow like a stuffed animal and giving me a suspicious look. What?
何か変なことしてたんじゃないでしょうね。
That suspicious had a lot of spit to it. I don't know what you mean by something weird, but no, I wasn't. What did she mean, something weird? Besides, she was still suspicious, even after I said I hadn't done anything.
男の人っていやらしいことを我慢するとき、トイレに行ってごまかすって聞いたけど。
Who's feeding you this unnecessary information? If it was a member of her family's company, their position in the company was in jeopardy. Who was it?
何よ。やっぱり何か知られたらまずいことでもしていたっていうの？
That's not true. That's not true, Saki. If you don't know, then that's fine.
何よ。兄さんのくせに偉そうなんだから。
Saki looked angry, but still cool-headed. Right now, I wasn't scared of that face at all. Not that Saki was that scary in the first place. Still with a sulky expression, Saki put the pillow back where it was and beckoned to me silently.
そんなに嫌そうにされると、やっぱり女としてのプライドが傷つくんだけど。
I'm not even allowed to sigh once. It wasn't that I wanted to hurt her pride, but I was still reluctant as I turned off the light and went to bed. I wanted to sleep apart from Saki, but she clung to me and I couldn't escape. On top of that, she was using my arm as a pillow, so I couldn't move. Hey, Saki, my arm is numb.
そう？大変ね。
She refused to be parted from me. Then again, it wasn't like I was clinging to her like she was a body pillow. Saki was sleeping with my arm as a pillow and her hands to her chest like she was praying. It wasn't like her breasts were pressing against me and making my heart race. I guess I should be glad, or at least relieved.
何紳士ぶってんのよ。いいからとっとと襲っちゃえって。ここまで来てるんだから本気で嫌がるわけがないでしょ。
What? I didn't realize. Well, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised that the devil on his shoulder is Club Prez. Yes, I'm calling her Club Prez because I forgot her name. But you didn't hear that from me.
ほら、どうぞ。末線食わぬは男の恥って言うでしょ。やっちゃえって男見せたれ。
It was super annoying to hear that from a devil with Club Prez's face. It wasn't a devil with her face. It just was her. Next to that was an image of Takahara holding death signs over a caricature of my reason. Hang in there, reason. Don't lose reason. As I was fighting this inner conflict, Saki looked up at me in silence. What?
汗臭かったりしない？大丈夫かしら？
You don't need to worry about that.
それ、否定されてないじゃない。やっぱり寝る前にシャワーを借りた方が良かったかしら。
No, it's fine, even without you taking one. Here's a one-room apartment without a dressing room. What did she intend to change when she came out of the shower? Was she going to tell me to walk out in the cold again? Though it would be more disturbing if she said she didn't mind if I watched. Besides, I'm your dear son, remember? Why are you worrying about the small things? I bent the arm she was using as a pillow and pet her on the head. My fingers caught on some hair and her hair got messed up.
もう、猫じゃないのよ。それに、兄さんと寝るなんて久しぶりだから、気になるのよ。私だって、女の子なんだし。
Saki muttered an excuse. I see. Come to think of it, we might have taken naps together when we were little. Even then, when I slept over at her place, she forced me to sleep in the same futon, but come to think of it, she always smelled pretty nice. Different from the usual Saki, a refreshing scent that wasn't too sweet. Maybe it was the smell of her shampoo or something. As I thought this, Saki scooted up next to me. Saki?
寒いのよ。いいじゃない。あと、それ、もうちょっと。
Did she mean pet her head? She moved a little as though urging that. Sure, why not? Having her rest her head on my arm and shoulder, I held her head and petted it. I could sense that she felt happy about it. I quickly yielded to my drowsiness and fell asleep. I heard the sound of doors closing quietly behind me. I thought he took sleeping pills and that's why I went to the bathroom. I guess they didn't work? I was standing in that grand but flamboyantly coloured room once more. As usual, there were steaming teapots and lots of sweets. But today, it wasn't just the lamp on the table providing light. The bright ceiling lights were on as well.
やっほー、いらっしゃい。
Uh-huh. You know, at least, because of the dynamic speech box, I don't have to worry about potentially censoring over the text box. The speech box, text box, same thing. But also, why does her first CG have to be with her panties in them? I mean, okay, I already pointed out that the first thing you see of her in the opening are her panties, but you know, I didn't think she would be known for always showing them off. You know? There was a girl with her legs up on the chair, drinking tea. Only one leg. Or should I say, nice to see you again. When I said this, she blinked.
おう、この間のこと覚えてるんだ。へえ、君すごいね。
I mean, I will say, it definitely leaves a strong impression. But still, I'm fairly confident in my ability to remember things from here, especially if I can remember by the color of the text. Her long hair went down to the middle of her back, and her gaze was strong and determined, and her panties were bright pink. I mean, her long limbs gave her a nice figure, one different from Club Prez's. If Club Prez had the kind of figure that showed off a woman's allure, this girl had a healthy, active look. But despite how alluring she was, I let out a sigh.
なんだろう。助けたのはこっちが勝手にやったこととはいえ、そういう態度をされるとちょっとムカッとするんだけど。
I'm grateful that you saved me. It's just that there's something hard to accept about it.
割り切りにくい？何それ？もしかして助けてほしくなかったとか？
No, not that. It's just that I was saved by someone like you.
私みたいなって、まさか女に助けられたのが気に入らないとか、そんなことじゃないよね。
No, that's not it. I'm glad I didn't end up trapped in that dream with Maya, but it's just I didn't think the one who saved me would turn out to be a girl I'd never seen before. Okay, maybe this is the problem, right? I may not cover her text, but I would be covering mine. And I don't think I can move this, right? It seemed the girl in front of me was basically my hero, right? I can't move the text box anywhere, and that's not what I was meant to do. Dreams may be unconscious, but I couldn't believe that I had been wishing to be saved by someone like her. What kind of mental image of a hero did I have? Who knows, maybe I won't worry about censoring them.
それ差別。女の子にだって人は助けられます。それで助けられて恥ずかしいなんて古い考えだと思います。
Listen, I think you're getting it wrong. He's not complaining that he was saved by a girl. He's complaining that he doesn't know you.
それに、夢の中なんだし、男だからとか女なんだからとか、起きてる時より関係ないと思うんだよね。
That's true, but even so, a girl like you...
アリス。
The girl interrupted me. Alice?
アリス。私の名前。イギリス人じゃないよ。呼び捨てでも何でもいいから、君とかお前じゃなくて、名前で呼んでちょうだい。
She needed to clarify that she isn't British, because everyone who would see Alice would link her to, Alice in Wonderland, especially considering the title of the chapter is In Wonderland. At those words, my head started to hurt again, and I sighed. Alice?
何か文句でもあるの?
I've got nothing but complaints. A female hero appears in my dreams, and her name is Alice, of all things. What on earth am I wishing for? As I said that, and flopped down on the sofa, the girl, Alice, clapped her hands.
ああ、そういうこと。だったらそれ勘違いだ。
Huh? What do you mean the wrong idea?
だから、私が君の名前は?
Toru Naito?
うん。私は、トールの夢の一部じゃないから。
Huh? Now I really didn't know what was going on. Yeah, you kind of just confused him even more.
私は、夢の登場人物じゃなくて、あちこちの夢にお邪魔してる。いわば、外からのゲストなのよ。
She said proudly with her hand on her chest. Well, at least they're not showing the panties anymore. And what is a guest like you doing exactly? Spying on people's dreams?
私、何してんだろうね。
Hey, what do you mean?
いや、そうやって人の夢をフラフラしてるのは確かなんだけど、なんでフラフラしてるんだろうって。
Proof notwithstanding, I started to really want her to be a guest from outside, like she said, rather than part of my dream.
まあ、それで昨日のトールみたいに悪夢に飲まれそうになった人を成り行きとか雪吊りで助けてみたりはしてるけど。
Alice said it as though it was a matter of fact. It sounded like a complete fantasy. And then again, this was a dream. That's way too unscientific, and there's hardly anything believable about it.
そう言われてもそうなんだから仕方ないじゃない。目の前のことから目をそらすのは科学の怠慢なんじゃないですか?
Damn, I should have expected my dream to provide an annoying rationalization.
だから、私はトールの夢から生まれた人間じゃないんだってば。
Alice protested, slamming her hands on the table like a child. But from the beginning, her tone and attitude were way too different from her mental image of Alice in Wonderland. Not that I could believe her crazy assertion that she wasn't part of my dream, but was instead just visiting. Yeah, especially since she's definitely not going to just be visiting. She didn't seem to like my attitude as I prepared myself some black tea and drank it, completely unconvinced.
言っておくけど、トールだってきっと私と同じことができるんですからね。
Huh? What do you mean?
なんだも何も、ここに来てる時点で一緒だって言ってるの。
She said and pointed to the floor of the room.
ここからなら他の人の夢に行けるの。 もっとも、ここが誰の夢かはわからないけど。
Aha. So, are you saying that this is like a hub for all dreams? Or, how do I say it? It's like, this is a hotel, and every person who dreams has their own room. I guess. Now let's clap their hands again.
もしかして、ここが私の夢かも。となると、トールが私の夢に来てるのかな。
Well, that's ridiculous. I'm the one dreaming, so isn't it my dream? The scenery and color scheme aside, and when you thought of the smell of the forest and Maya appearing, it was obvious this was something from my trauma. But Alice tilted her head.
そうかもしれないし、そうじゃないかもしれない。その辺は私にもわかんないな。だけど、トールはもうちょっとでそれどころじゃないことになりそうだったけどね。
She stared straight into my eyes.
あのままだったら、まともな夢を見るどころか、起きられるかどうかも危なかった。
You mean what happened yesterday?
やっぱりぼんやりでも覚えてるんだ。そうだよね。私のこと分かったもんね。
Actually, far from remembering it vaguely, I remembered the entire thing. So, how could you tell that I was almost beyond worrying about?
根拠って、トール、君あそこまで危ない目に遭ってて、まさか大丈夫だと思ってるの？
I didn't think that at all. But isn't it strange to make such a big deal out of that situation? Such a big deal out of that situation. What I saw yesterday touched upon my most intimate of desires. But it wasn't like I was about to be killed. Besides, I didn't think Alice thought it was so dangerous because of what I saw in my dream. If you didn't know the circumstances, it just looked like I was being lovey-dovey with a girl. It seemed odd to exaggerate and say I'd never wake up.
バラ。この部屋の外にも花は咲いてるけど、そうじゃない、光るバラの花が咲いてたでしょ？
Those bright red roses that had been blooming around me and Maya, the ones with faintly glowing petals and multicolored stems. The roses that smelled like sweet roasted honey, sweets in the forest instead of normal roses. What about them? Maya said they were flowers that granted wishes.
望みね。ある意味それも間違ってないんだけど。あれはね、悪夢の花なの。
Nightmare flowers? What do you mean?
言ったままの意味。その人の一番弱いところや、押し込めてる望みで成長して咲く花なのよ。
I didn't immediately believe her words, but I felt a chill run up my spine.
あの悪夢で咲くバラの種は、夢を見ている人の体に埋まってるの。それが、叶えたいその人が我慢している願いで成長して、花を咲かせる。花が咲けば、夢の中ではその望みは叶っていく。けれども、望みは際限なく膨らんでいく。最初に咲いたバラは、まだ白い色をしているんだけど、次第に真っ赤になっていくの。
Like the flowers that had been blooming around me yesterday, only the roses blooming around me, hadn't they been bright red from the start?
で、最初に咲いたバラの花が真っ赤に染まると、そこでおしまい。その夢に飲み込まれる。そうなったら、もうどうなるか私にもわからない。
Well, I'm sure you'll find out eventually, especially in Maya's route.
少なくとも、何でも自由になる世界だもん。もう二度と目を覚まそうなんて思わなくなるでしょうね。
Hey, are you serious? That's not even funny. And never waking up again in a world where you can do anything. That wasn't something I could laugh off.
あれ？こっちは非科学的がどうとかバカにしないの？
Well, I already experienced it myself. I too was convinced that I wouldn't have woken up again if I had fallen asleep during that dream yesterday. But even before that, I knew what would happen if I was swallowed up by a dream. Although I still didn't really understand those flowers, her description told me enough.
そんなわけで、 あれは悪夢のバラの花。優しく人を堕落させるひどい悪夢の形なのよ。綺麗だけどね。
I see. I nodded without protest, but Alice tilted her head.
だけど、君の場合はまた違うというか、あの子、何なんだろう。
She didn't seem to be worried, that my flowers had been red. Maybe she hadn't seen it, or maybe it was my imagination.
ほら、覚えてない？昨日夢に出てきて誘ってた女の子。誰かの悪夢だと思うんだけど、それにしてはあり方がおかしいっていうか。
Not someone's. She's obviously my nightmare. An easy to understand visage from my past, inviting me and not letting me go. It made perfect sense that it took the form of Maya. Maya had always been that kind of person anyway. Whether she was angry or happy or plotting something, she was always smiling sweetly, so I could never tell what she was thinking. But her smile made me smile helplessly too. Hey, what's with that unpleasant face?
あのさ、トール。もしかして君って変な夢の見方したりしない？夢の内容を結構覚えてるとか、なんかそういうの。
Yes, that's exactly how it is. I can remember my dreams as well as I can events when I can remember my dreams as well as I can events when I'm awake. And sometimes I can even do whatever I want. When I snapped my fingers, a pot which wasn't on a fire made a sound and spouted steam from its spout. I was weird way of saying spout. Doing this much was a piece of cake in my dreams. Yeah, but that's only when you're able to control them. But seeing that, Alice made an even more unpleasant, tired face.
ああ、だからだ。悪夢にしてはしつこいし消えないし、意志強いし性格悪いし。
Hey, being my nightmare meant that it was part of me, so it hurt a bit to hear her say bad personality right to my face. That wasn't me. That's how Maya was.
それに多分、この部屋に来れたってことは、きっと他のとこにも行けるってことだし。困ったな。
What do you mean by she can go to other places? Don't tell me she can go to other people's dreams.
だからそうだって。まあ、起点がここだから、この部屋の夢を見てる人と関係あるか、もしくは、君の悪夢だから、君と関わりのある人のところにしか行けないと思うけど。
She returned her empty cup to the table with a clatter.
逆に言えば、よほど親しい、近しい人なら、トールがいなくても、あの子はちょっかいかけられるんじゃないかな。
It was just when Alice said that, yeah, it was just when Alice said that.
その通りよ。
You say her name too many times and she appears like Beetlejuice. Or I guess just like Beetlejuice, she appears if you say her name too many times. Arms appeared out of the air and reached for me from behind. Wrapping around my neck from behind, she hugged me.
こんばんは。また会えたわね。また何しに来たの？私がいる以上、そう簡単に変なことはさせないから。あら、変なことって何かしら。私はただ、大事な相手に会いに来ただけなのに。ねえ？
Maya giggled and ran her finger along my cheek. I was completely frozen in fear. She wiped the cold sweat running down my temple.
それに、今日は、誘いに来たわけじゃないもの。
That seemed to be true, because there were no flowers blooming around us like yesterday. Perhaps because of this, Alice seemed hesitant and couldn't entirely manage a strong front. Or maybe it was because I was being held hostage. My thin arms were in a position where she could strangle me at any time. You're not inviting me today? Maya, you can't possibly mean... I suddenly realized what Alice meant when she said Maya could mess with people close to me.
わかってるんじゃないかしら。あら、来たみたいだわ。
We heard footsteps. The doors I had entered from opened with a small creak, and the one standing on the other side was...
ここは、どこ？兄さん。
Welcome to the party. We have cake. Or, I guess, cakes. Saki stepped in looking either half asleep or like she had a cold. At some point, Maya had moved away from me and appeared behind Saki, hugging her from behind.
こんばんは。いらっしゃい、さきちゃん。
Maya grabbed onto Saki, as if she had met a close friend. Saki seemed not to recognize her for a moment, but upon realizing it was Maya, she froze on the spot. Just then, the smell of those flowers wafted into the air. The smell of sweet roasted honey, black tea, and dense forest.
マイヤちゃん、どうしてここに兄さんが？これ、何なの？
どうしたの、さきちゃん。せっかくまた会えたっていうのに。私はとっても嬉しいのに、さきちゃんは嬉しくないの？
Saki looked like she might fall to her knees at any moment. There wasn't a shred of her usual strong and confident self. It was painfully obvious that she did all she could to not collapse. Maya, knock it off!
ひどいわ、水臭いわ、抜け駆けだわ。どうして私に黙って一緒のベッドでなんて寝ているのかしら？
Well, maybe if you weren't dead or whatever the fuck you are, you would be in the bed with them. Maya ran a finger across the back of Saki's neck and moved it across Saki's throat like a knife. The gesture was enough to make anyone freeze in place. The hostages had changed. Alice surveyed the situation, seemingly unsure of what was going on.
昔はいつも3人一緒だったのに、やっぱり兄さんを独り占めしたい？
マイヤちゃん、なんでそんな。
Maya's tone made it sound like she was simply telling a close friend a joke. Saki was frozen stiff and looked like she was about to burst into tears.
それでさきちゃんは兄さんとどうしたいの？どこまでしたいの？どうされたいのかしら？
At Maya's words, Saki gasped. Once again, a one-letter Freudian slip, not unlike the other multiple-letter... Never mind. The sweet smell grew stronger and made the hairs on my back... The hairs on my back. Usually it's the hairs on the back of my neck. Stand on end. Maya, that's enough. Stop tormenting Saki. Stifling my inner turmoil, I somehow managed to speak in my usual tone, without my voice shaking. But in reality, I felt like my legs would give way if I trembled even a little. And if I took my hands out of my pockets, she would easily see that they were shaking. It was pathetic, but Mai's words from yesterday echoed in my mind. I was even thinking that if everything went as I wished, then maybe that would be fine. In contrast to me, Maya just uttered a quiet "oh" and took her hand away from Saki's cheek.
そうやっていつもさきちゃんばかりかばうんだから。
That's because you are always being mean to Saki. If someone was ever mean to you, I protect you just the same, Maya.
ええ、そうね。いつも確かにそうだったわ。
There was a time when this would be a pretty typical exchange between us. Maya seemed to be basking in the nostalgia of it, but I felt completely cornered. Like a balloon full to bursting, or a cup filled to the brim, I felt like I would overflow from the slightest touch. But I couldn't give up that easily. The Saki before me might be the actual person. It was only a slight possibility, but even so. I couldn't look pathetic in front of Saki any longer, even if it wasn't actually her. If I give in, I had the feeling I wouldn't be able to recover.
一人じゃなければ強がれるんだ。
Maya murmured apathetically. I knew she knew that this was just a front, but that didn't mean I could stop.
結局、君は誰なの？
Yeah, I'd like to know that too. Alice, who had been silent, opened her mouth. She didn't move from where she was, but with her arms folded, she studied Maya.
ねえ、君がトールやその子とどんな関係があるかわからないけど。だけど、そうやって悪い夢を見せたがるって言うなら、こっちにも考えがあるけど。
There was steadfast look on Alice's face. This game doesn't like putting just the singular A in any fucking sentences. There was a steadfast look on Alice's face.
私何をされちゃうのかしら。
Maya gave a confident smile. Oh, well, there it is. I mean, okay, obviously they have done that before, but, you know. I'm joking. Although Alice had interfered with Maya yesterday, Maya didn't seem the least bit concerned.
だけど、私が誰かなんて、どう説明すればいいかしら。三人で将来を誓い合った仲？さきちゃんと一緒に同じ人を思い合った仲？それとも…
Maya was still grinning.
私なんて消えちゃえばいい。そう思われていたかしら。ねえ、さきちゃん。そうすれば、兄さんを独り占めできたものね。
私、そんなこと思ってない。
本当に？だけど今、ほら、さきちゃんは独り占めしてるじゃない。それとも、今の独り占めは望んでなかったの？妹になってしまって、兄さんなんて呼んで、そこから動けなくなってしまって。もしもそうじゃなければ、妹じゃなければ、ありふれてありがちでどこにでもいる恋人同士になれたかもしれないのに。ね？
Saku trembled in response to Maya's words. This was largely my fault, so I found myself uncertain of how to stop her.
どうするのが幸せだったのかしら。どんな望みがあったのかしら。誰か、どうすれば？妹？恋人？彼女？家族？二人っきりがいいの？それとも、私もそこにいていいのかしら。ね？
Those words were obviously aimed at me. Maya, don't. If you don't give it a rest.
私相手だけじゃなくて、さきちゃんにも強がってるの？いつだって妹なんかじゃなくて、女の子として見てたくせに。
I could hear Saki let out a quiet but my words were caught in my throat.
ほら、どうして二人とも強がってるの？もっと素直に素敵に、思い通りにできるのに。
Just then, I heard the voice of Alice gasping.
まさか、
The
もう
voice.
ここに来る前に。
Sound of Alice gasping. It was too late. In response to Maya's whispers, vines sprang up from around Saki's feet as their scent permeated the room. Alice tried to move, but vines had appeared around her, as well and hindered her movements. Not just her. The vines sprang up around me too. Little by little, it became harder to move, and when I tried to walk, I almost fell.
ねえ、さきちゃん。目覚めた先の現実の世界には、望みを叶えるには問題が多すぎると思ったことはないかしら。
We couldn't move, so Maya ignored us, as she brushed her hand across Saki's cheek.
だけど、夢の中は自由よ。みんないる。さきちゃんも私も兄さんだっているわ。望む通りにできる。なんだって好きにしていいし、できるの。
望む通り、好きに。
Don't listen to her. Did I have any right to say that? Maya put her mouth next to Saki's ear. White rose petals fluttered around them.
何も我慢しなくていいのよ。
Maya whispered and grinned at me. While still holding Saki, Maya leapt through the doors. Saki was no longer looking at me as she disappeared, leaving only the delectable scent in petals. No, I won't let you! With all my strength, I snapped my fingers. With the sound, With that sound, the vines around me loosened, and I was able to move again. Don't listen to her. Don't depend on Maya. I had no right to say those things, but I couldn't leave Saki to the world of the dreams. I raced through the sweet smell of the petals and leapt into the door they had disappeared through. Just then, the entire world disappeared, and I fell headfirst. Oh, what a transition. Childhood friends. That was the relationship we had shared. This time there isn't a voice to say these things. Us two and one more, 3 in total. But one is gone, and now we're one and one. Not only that, one tried to go after the missing one. So one stopped being one to prevent that one from going. That was how 1 and 1 became 2 again. But of those 2, one was originally just 1. Then where did the original 1 go? They didn't disappear, and they didn't go after the missing one. They've been there all along. They remained inside one of those 2. And so, one was both 1 and 1 and 1 and 2. That way, there are still 3, even with 1 gone, right? In that case, what would happen if that one who left came back?